Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Edit. And today I'm going to be editing an image that I shot on Shingle Street in Suffolk about a week ago. And it's an image which is sort of combining DEEPSCAPE with macro photography. It's an image using a 135mm lens. The subject is this little sort of I don't know what plant it is here on the Shingle beach. I selected this as my subject because it was a relatively robust plant on what was quite a blustery day. So this wasn't kind of waving around in the wind or anything like that. It was kind of really tucked in and nice and still for my exposure. And behind it, you can probably see here the sort of very bokeh site of Antares and the Rho Ophiuchi region, which I then took some tracked exposures of a little bit later on. You can see here, this is a 135mm tracked shot. Now, it was quite a windy night out there, and some of these exposures you can probably see will have not quite fully round stars, and there was a bit of cloud passing over as well. So I'm actually going to go through these exposures before I bring them to Lightroom and just remove anything where I've got some funny shaped stars, which I do there. So let's just remove that. And I'm just going to try and find enough exposures that are hopefully reasonably well shot without the wind shaking the camera too much, or indeed there being too much cloud in the way as well. So I'm just going to go through these. This will take a little bit of time to do, hopefully not too long. And really what I'm doing is just looking at the image just to see if there's perhaps too much wobble in the stars. I'm not looking for perfect stars, but I am looking for stars that are at least mostly round. For example, you can see here there's the wind has really taken the camera, and these stars are kind of lines rather than nice pinpoint stars. So I'm going to get rid of those completely because they're not going to add anything when I stack them. They're just going to cause a bit of a mess. That's probably not a good one either. The wind seems to have calmed down a little bit here. Still not perfectly round stars, but probably good enough. That's good. That's good. A little bit of cloud, unfortunately, coming through here as well. So quite challenging shooting conditions, actually. Some of these are better than others. Don't really want to have to get rid of too many, but if it's cloudy, there's not a lot you can do about it, eh? You can see here just a lot of cloud over on the left-hand side of the image there, which is a great shame. We'll just keep removing the shots that are perhaps worse affected. Okay, I think that is the end of that. So I'm left then with the 17 best shots that I have of that. It's not ideal in terms of the quantity, but hopefully I'll still be able to make a decent image out of this. So let's first of all go to Lightroom and we'll import all of those images, including the foreground images, and just take a closer look at them. So quickly look at the foreground image here. Is at ISO 6400 and a 30-second exposure. It doesn't have details of the F ratio on here because it's a manual lens without any electronics in it, so it doesn't communicate to the camera. And then the sky shots were tracked ISO 2000 and 28 seconds. I suspect it was going to be 30 seconds, but I probably accidentally still had the 2-second delay on the camera. So as usual, we will edit the sky images first of all, and I will select one that's sort of relatively in the middle of the sequence, so that if the light conditions change over the course of the image, I'm sort of averaging that out by using the middle image. And the first thing I'm going to do is go to the develop panel and a few simple edits before I stack these. So let's first of all fix the white balance and choose, using the dropper here, a relatively neutral area of the sky. That should be okay. I'm just going to very lightly drop some highlights, and I will also apply some removal of the fringing, the purple fringing, which I will find in just a second. I seem to have lost it. Where are we? What am I looking for here? Lens corrections. So they're manual lens corrections, which I can do here. What I'm actually going to do, I think the Samyang lens is saved within Lightroom here. I'm going to go to Enable Profile Corrections, and I'm going to select the lens I was using, which is a Samyang 135mm f2 lens. And this lens at f2 suffers from quite a bit of vignetting, which I need to fix, because otherwise the center of the image will be a lot brighter than the outer parts of the image. So I'm just going to fix that here by moving that vignetting slider up to probably 200%, because I'm at f2, and that's probably enough there for those sky images. So I can then, once that has synchronized to all of the other images there, export that, all of those images as TIFF files, and let's just pop that into the right folder. I'll just create a subfolder called TIFFs, and then make sure I'm on TIFF format here, and I want 16 bits per component, which it is already, checking that there's no watermark, and then I'll export those. And my next stop for the application is going to be Sequator. So let's start a new project here in Sequator. Click on Star Images in the top left corner here, and then I can click on my TIFFs, and I'll import all, I think it was 18 I said, of those TIFF files. I then need to click on Composition, Align Stars, and I'm going to choose down here, Select Best Pixels. I tend to find that gives the least noisy final image. I don't need to click Align, Freeze Ground or anything like that, because there is no ground in these images. So I can just select a name for the output file, which I will call Stacked Sky. Let's click Save and then start that off. And that should only take a couple of minutes to stack those images. Doesn't usually take very long in Sequator. So there we go. Okay, so now that sky is stacked, let's bring that sky over into Photoshop. Okay, so I've got Photoshop open. Let's find that file, the stacked sky, and bring that in. Okie dokie. So the first thing that I do whenever I bring an image into Photoshop is I duplicate the initial image, so that I've always got that initial image untouched somewhere in the file in case I mess up some of the edits. Now last time I did that using Control Alt Shift N and E as my keyboard shortcut, which stamps the layer, creates a visible stamp of the layer. Now that's quite a faff to do on this keyboard, particularly if you've got fat fingers like I have, because it's quite easy to miss the key, and it's, you know, getting 5 fingers across different keys at any one time is slightly challenging. So I had a very useful tip in the comments of my last video from Glenn, who is over on the Astrobloke channel, and he gave me a little hint, which is if I go to Actions, what I can do here is record a new action, which I do by, sorry, actually I don't do that, beg your pardon. I click on the plus icon here to add a new action, and I can name this action Stamp Layer, and I can then assign this action to a particular function key. I'm going to assign it here to F12, and I can then click record. And there's obviously something already on the F12 function, which is fine. I don't use that, so I'm going to say it's okay to remove that. And I can then record that that action, which is Control Alt Shift N and E. I then stop the recording down here. And then if I want to stamp the layer at any point, I simply click F12, and you can see there at the top of the screen, it's just taken a stamp of that layer. So that's going to save me a bit of time. Thank you very much, Glenn, for that little tip. If anyone knows any other tips as I'm going through this, please do drop them in the comments. So I've stamped that layer. The first thing I'm going to do is some very basic edits in Camera Raw filter. And that's going to include just nudging up the vibrance and saturation. One of the great things about this part of the sky is this lovely dustiness and these contrasting orange and blue colours in the Rho Ophiuchi area around here. So I really want to bring that out nicely. So upping the vibrance and saturation will help with that. I'm also going to just apply a little bit of dehaze here. And it was a hazy night, so this should just help bring out some of the detail. And I'm going to apply a little bit of contrast here as well. I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to start trying to stretch this image a little bit. So I'm going to go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and Curves. And I'm pretty sure that's where I'm going to record my next action and assign it to a function key. I might well reserve F11 as a curves adjustment, because I use that all the time when I'm stretching images. I'm just going to apply a very, very light S-curve in this image. Nothing too dramatic, just enough to start to bring out some of the dusty detail down here, which you can start to see. And then I'm going to stamp. I nearly did Control Alt Shift F and N and E again. What I meant to do, of course, was just press F12, and that's starting to look a little bit stretched. But what you can see here as well is that impact of that vignetting in this lens. The center of this image is a lot brighter than the outside of the image, so I can fix that to an extent here in Camera Raw filter. By on the effects tab here, going down to vignette and just trying to make those corners ever so slightly brighter. That looks a bit flatter than it was earlier, so let's save that. Possibly gone a bit too far, but I'm sure it will be okay. You can see the impact of that on and off there. Maybe a bit too aggressive, we'll see. Well, we can always unwind that if we need to. Okay, and at this stage, I'm going to take a copy of this, and I am going to then remove the stars from the image. So let me just go to Control A and Control C to take a copy. I'll then create a new file, which will be the same size as the clipboard. I can then paste that copied image onto the clipboard. I can remove that background layer here, and I can save that as for star removal. Excellent. So now I need to go into Starnet and remove the stars. So I click on Browse to find the correct input file. 135mm for star removal. And then I need to create the name for the Starless version, which I'll call Starless or Faux Starless. There we go. Then click that to run, and that should take no more than a minute or so to run that application. And the first thing I'm going to do on this Starless layer is just to take a stamp of it with F12, and then I'm going to do some very light Camera Raw filter edits. I'm going to add a bit of vibrance and saturation, a little bit of extra contrast, apply a little bit of dehaze, and a little bit of clarity as well. And then I'm going to do my first light stretch, going to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and Curves. I'm going to apply a small S-curve to this. Now you'll note as I do that there is quite a bit of vignetting that you can see in the lens here. So by that what I mean is the center of the image is a lot brighter than the edges of the image. Now I know that the vignetting adjustment tool in Camera Raw Filter won't really deal with that. So the way I'm going to try and deal with it is using the layer mask that sits on the curves adjustment layer here. I'm going to go to the gradient tool and I'm going to apply a circular, or radial gradient rather, which is this little sort of circular globe here. And I am going to just create a circular gradient, which I'm going to try and put roughly at the center of the image. Now, at the moment, this is around the wrong way. The gradient is the white part of the mask is in the center of the image, but I'm just going to get some basics done here before I invert it. And what I want is a nice sort of gentle slope off here of this gradient in the curves layer here. So I think that's sort of okay, sort of where I want it. Something like that will be fine, I think. And then what I can do is use Control I to invert that mask. And what you can see is if I just disable that mask a second, it's taking the very bright center part here and it's just sort of evening out the whole of that image there. So the before and after that stretch, that's before the stretch, that's after the stretch. You're starting to see a little bit more of that dusty detail down here. But what you're also doing by putting that radial gradient in the mask there is I'm stopping the center here from looking unusually blown out. It's not without its imperfections, but it's the way that I'm hoping to deal with that vignetting in this image. So let's create another stamp of that, and then let's go back to Camera Raw Filter and do some more basic edits. Hopefully by now you get a bit of a feel for how I edit skies, with sort of gentle nudging of the curves to bring out some of the detail, and then sort of trying to pare some of that back a little bit in Camera Raw Filter. Just doing everything nice and gently so I don't overcook things. There we go, a bit of contrast in there as well. Excuse me, and I'm just going to do another adjustment layer, curves adjustment layer, and just apply a little bit more of that S-curve in here as well. There we go. You can start to see some of that lovely dustiness beginning to come out here, and those colours in Roa Fuki. I just love this part of the sky. It's a real shame it doesn't get higher in the UK, because I'd love to have this, you know, a lot higher up, out of the murk and the muckiness. That's enough from that curves adjustment, I think. I'm just going to take a copy of that mask and bring it up into the current layer here as well. So just show you the effect of that mask again. That's with it disabled, that's with it enabled. It just stops the center of things being too bright. That's good enough. Let's stamp that layer again, making some nice progress on this now. I think I'm going to do one more light stretch as well. Probably all I can really do with this data. There we go, just nudging it up and then nudging that down, a nice little S-curve. There we go, that's good. Let's take another copy of this layer mask here. I do that, by the way, by pressing Alt and then clicking on the mask that I want to copy and moving it up to the layer onto which I want to paste it. It'll say, am I sure I want to replace that mask? Yes, I do. There we go. So let's Press F12 to create that stamp. Come back into Camera Raw Filter. It's not, oh, sorry, I'm clicked on the mask rather than the layer itself. Let's just take the stamp. There we go. I don't think I actually took the stamp of that in the first place. So now let's go back to Camera Raw Filter. Get a bit of contrast going. Touch more dehaze. That clarity now will start to bring out some of those dust lanes a little bit. I might just drop the highlights to take the edge off some of these areas as well. That's okay. Fantastic. And now the next stage for me is to try to accentuate some of this gorgeousness down here in Row. Now, because it doesn't get terribly high in the UK, it's going to be hard to pull some of this away from some of the background sky, but certainly what I can do is darken some of these dust lanes here, and I'm going to do that by using the burn tool over here, which darkens areas that you specify in the image. And here I've applied the range to shadow, so it's going to darken the shadows in the image, and I'm just going to adjust that exposure to 2%, which means it should just be fairly gentle. I don't want to be too aggressive with this. Let's make the brush a little bit smaller by using the left-hand square bracket. And the bits I want to focus on here are down here in Row. So you can see here, I just gently click on some of this. Those dark areas will start to become just ever so slightly darker, just to accentuate all the craziness that goes on in this part of the sky. And it's just a magnificent part of the sky. It really is just so colourful, so detailed, really evocative part of the sky pointing towards the Milky Way core. It's absolutely gorgeous. And even though I don't have much in the way of data here, so it's not a lot of exposures I'm pulling together, I'm hoping it will begin to look quite nice. There we go. That's probably okay for now, maybe a little bit more. Don't really want to overdo it, but you can see I'll probably struggle to pull some of these reds and blues out further from the background because there's not a lot of contrast there. So I think to really make Row pop, I'm going to have to rely on the dust lanes doing that job for me. So that's where this burning comes in. There we go. I think that is okay for now. And you can sort of just do this to your own taste. There's no right or wrong way. It's just whatever you think looks good for the image you're trying to create. There we go. I'm going to leave that, I think, like that. That will do. Excellent. Okie dokie. So now what I want to do, I mean, in the ideal world I'd have more exposure. Row would be higher in the sky, and these dust lanes that come down, you know, come down here would be a lot more accentuated, but there's not a lot I can do about that with where it was in the sky. I'm pleased to have got some of this detail in the first place here. So just to show you the before and after of that, that's before and that is after. You can just see how these dust lanes here just pop that little bit more having done that. And then I'm going to apply a little bit of dodging as well. So let's take another stamp of the layer and go to the dodge tool here, and just to remind you, dodging will brighten specified areas of the image, and here what we specified is the highlights, and I'm on 2% exposure, which is nice and gentle. Don't want to go too aggressive with this. And the areas that I want to focus on here are these areas of nebulosity in Row. So don't want to do it too much, because as you tend to work on this, it will also reduce the saturation, because it's lightening the image. It will reduce the saturation, and I don't want to lose these lovely reds and yellows that I have here. So just very lightly over here, and I'll just go over that globular cluster there nicely as well. And I think that will do for now. So let's save that. Just to show you the before and after there. That's just ever so gently I've done on that. Nothing too spectacular at all. I tell you, I could probably just do a bit more on here as well. There we go. Magnificent. Great. So, excuse me, let's go back to the star layer, which at the moment looks a bit flat, but there's some interesting stuff in here that I really want to make sure comes out nicely. Notably, Antares, this lovely orange star here, and then the stars in this globular cluster here. So let's take a stamp of that layer, and then let's go to Camera Raw Filter. And I'm keen here to make the highlights brighter. There we go, Antares doesn't need much encouragement from that. I definitely want to bring out a bit more saturation. So I'm turning saturation up quite high there, and that's okay. Bit of vibrance in there as well. Sometimes clarity will help. I don't think it's doing much there, to be honest. And I think that will do for now. That's just made those stars just that little bit more poppy. There you go. And it's not like it's an area where there's so many stars we actually want to reduce them. This actually I think looks quite nice. So I will then take in fact, let's just take a copy here of that Starless layer. So Control A, Control C, and I'm just going to paste that into a new folder. That's not what I want, so let's remove that. Excuse me. Let's come back onto here. Right, so Control A, Control C. There we go, that's better. Let's remove that background layer. And then I want to apply that star layer to this image. So click on the star layer, Control A, Control C to copy. And then let's paste that over that Starless layer. There we go. And then we can start playing with the blending mode, which I suspect here is going to be either screen or lighten. Again, I think screen gives the best result there. Lighten does tend to remove probably too many of the stars for my liking, but again, this is just artistic taste. It's whatever works for you. Sometimes linear dodge can also work quite nicely. That's looking a bit noisy to my eye, so let's go for screen. And then let's flatten that. And then I'm going to save that as edited sky. Fantastic. And so I'm pretty happy with that. Given how low Rho Ophiuchi was in the sky, I'm fairly happy with that. I'm not necessarily happy with my sky composition here, and probably, and you'll see why in a second, I would have liked this part of Rho to have been a bit further over here, but I sort of wanted the hold of that scorpion's tail of Scorpius here to be in the image as well. So we'll see. I mean, it's all I shot, so it's what I'm going to have to work with for now. Let's move over back to Lightroom and start editing the shot, the foreground shot. Okie dokie, so we're back in Lightroom. This is the foreground image that I am hoping to use. And you can see where it's been shot with the Astro modified camera. The white balance is all over the place. So let's first of all take the dropper tool here and place it on a relatively neutral part of the sky, which is hard to find here if I'm honest. That's probably okay. Let's maybe just drop the temperature a little bit, reflecting the fact it was a jolly cold night. And you can see here there's some nice detail on this little plant. There's some nice detail in the pebbles on the beach as well. And in this version of the image, because of course this isn't a tracked sky in any way, you can see all of the stars in the background there have been thrown out into that bokeh-ness. I'm just going to reduce the highlights here a little bit and then add some clarity and a little bit of dehaze, some contrast as well. But, you know, I might warm that up a little bit as well. There we go. That's probably a slightly better white balance for the foreground here. And I'm also here going to use the AI denoise function from Lightroom, just because this was at night. It's a foreground. It's a quite a detailed foreground image, and I certainly don't want any messiness in the foreground if I can possibly remove it. So you can see here that that's the before and that's the after that denoise. It really does just get rid of some of that horrible sort of color noise that you get there. So I'm going to click enhance, and that will take probably just a minute or so to complete. Fantastic. So that's now finished. I am then going to go to photo and edit in, and I'm going to edit it as a layer in Photoshop. Take a little while to open. There we go. The first thing I'm going to do in here is just save that to TIFF. So let's just call that edited foreground. And then don't want any compression. Great. Now, interestingly, what that's done is it's created a it transferred out both the denoised and the noised, or the undenoised versions. So I can get rid of the the undenoised version, because it's only the one where we've had AI denoise applied that I want to use. So I am now going to take a copy of that. So Control A, Control C, and I'm going to put that copy over on my edited sky layer here. And I'm going to now select the sky so I can mask it by going Select, Sky. Hopefully it will work that out reasonably well. It's a fairly clean sky transition. It looks like it has done. Interestingly, it's thinking some of these stars here are parts of the foreground, which obviously we can sort out in a second. I then click on the mask icon here, and that will create a mask of the sky. It's actually the wrong way around, so I just need to invert that by pressing Control and I. And then let's get rid of these horrible blotches here by taking a black brush, so clicking on the brush tool here, making sure that I'm on a black brush down here, making that brush large enough, and just painting over these bits that for some reason the Photoshop thought were parts of the foreground. Now, what I want to do here is to just increase the canvas size a little bit. Well, perhaps I can do that in a second. I'll do it now, actually. So click on Image, Canvas Size, anchor it down at the bottom here, and I want, because I need to move the sky up a little bit, I just need to make the height a little bit greater. So I'll make that 4,500 pixels. That should be more than enough. I can then move that sky layer up a little bit. Oh, sorry. There we go. That's just first of all, I need to unlock that. There we go. That's why. There we go. Just fractionally there. Brilliant. And what I also need to do is on the layer at the top here, on the layer mask, you'll see that where I have extended the canvas upwards, it's assumed that the mask at the top there needs to be white. It in fact needs to be black, because I need to be able to see all the way through to the sky layer down here. So if I just click on the brush tool and a decent size brush tool, and I can just paint over all of this, although actually it doesn't seem to be having the impact I thought it would, so we're probably okay. Just finish it off anyway. There we go. Okie dokie. So I just need to make sure that the sky is being, or the foreground is being masked correctly here at the bottom. And what you'll find, if I just gently move the sky layer here, and I'll zoom in a bit, you'll be able to see that some of the sky layer is bleeding into the foreground. So if you just watch around where some of these pebbles are down here, and I just move that around, you can see that you can see some of the sky layer moving in that foreground, and I don't want that at all. This is all foreground. Clearly you're not going to be able to see through these pebbles to see the sky, so I just need to make that mask a little bit better for the foreground here. So I'm going to click on the brush tool. I need a white brush, and I need probably maybe a little bit bigger than that. There we go. And the way I'm going to do that is by clicking on the left hand side of the image here, probably about there, and then clicking all the way on the right hand side of the image, and that will just make sure that the I held down shift when I did that, by the way, so I went left click and then holding down shift, left click over here, and you can see that's just making sure that all of this is properly been masked in, is white on the mask here, because sometimes it can just feather the mask a little bit too much, so you start seeing stars or sky popping through some of the foreground, which obviously is crazy in this case. But it's done a great job actually of masking this complexity in this plant here, which I'm very, very pleased about. I'm just going to move that sky layer up a little bit, so to something like that, because I want to try and get all of that row area here into the image. I think that's okay. Let's just do a little bit more work on the white layer here as well. Just really want to make sure that there's no stars trying to shine through here, which I think we're okay with. Fantastic. Right. Okay, that's now starting to look like a reasonable image. I just want to improve the quality of the mask down here. You can see it's getting a little bit light at the bottom of the sky there, which isn't how I meant it to be. So I just need to get a black brush, a relatively small one, probably around 100, maybe a bit bigger than that. Let's say about 200, that'll be fine. And I'm just going to reduce the hardness there. Oh, sorry, not the hardness. I need to reduce the opacity just down to 50%. And I'm just going to gently mask back in some of this sky here. Don't worry if it's sort of overkill at the moment, because what I'm then going to do is go back on the white mask, go back to full opacity, and just bring this back in here. Ah, rats. Okay. That is a little bit better, I think. Still probably a little bit of work to do down there, but I'll perhaps come back to that later on, just to kind of remove that lower part of the sky there, where it's getting a little bit lighter. So that's the basic image. I now want to get the crop sorted on this, and what I really want to make sure with this crop is I'm capturing all of that scorpion's tail here. So the 3 stars here that sort of almost create like a cup around row Fuki over here. So whatever crop I go for, I want to make sure I've at least got this star at the top. So I think probably a 5x7 will work best. A 16x9 will be too tight, so I think a 5x7 is probably the right crop to go with. I want, of course, the plant right bang in the middle of the image there at the bottom. Just need to bring that in a bit. Okie dokie. And maybe bring in that side as well. So there we go. That's nicely centered in the lower middle third. I've still got these lovely 3 stars here, which sort of create this almost bracket around Roafuki, which is tucking out nicely from the edge of the plant there. So I think that is the crop that I would like to go with. So let's click the tick button there. And I think that's quite a nice image, combining a macro shot, or a relatively macro shot at 135mm of this interesting and certainly quite tough plant on the side of the of the shingle here, with this lovely part of the sky, this Roafuki part of the sky, which is so gorgeous. And if you live in more southern parts of the world, so in southern Europe or in even Australia, where it gets lovely and high, I'm really quite envious of you, because it's so beautiful. Would love to do more with this, but I'm quite happy with that image. I think if I was going to change anything, what I'd like is maybe for this part of row to be up here, so to ignore the 3 stars of the scorpion's tail there, and instead to have row up here with all these lovely dust lanes sort of almost like streaking across the image here. Creating really sort of striking effect, but the composition is what I shot, and it still works. It is still what I set out to do. It's just you sort of reflect back and think what might work better, but I'm reasonably happy with that. So thanks very much indeed again for joining me on another one of these edit videos. I hope you're getting something out of it. Certainly from the last video, I got something out of it with some of the tips and tricks that you guys shared with me. If there's anything that you're unsure of in here, or anything where you think, what are you doing there, Paul? You could be doing it much better by doing X, Y, or Z, then please do drop a comment below as well, and share that idea with everyone else who watches these videos. If you've not watched the adventure that went along with this, then please do hop over onto that now. I'll link that in the comments. It was a really fun night out in a truly beautiful part of the world, a very remote part of the English coastline. I absolutely loved it. So please do go and check that out, and I look forward to seeing you on another edit video very soon.